My sister came home from school in complete silence. They put fake money in my locker with a note that said, "This is all you'll ever be worth." I didn't know what to say. Then someone stuffed a penny in my bag at lunch, but days later, the richest kid in school stood up in the cafeteria and said her name and the whole room fell silent. Me, 19 female, and my sister, 16 female, grew up in a broken home. Recently she came home from school devastated because bullies at her private school put fake money in her locker saying, "This is all you'll ever be worth," and stuffed pennies in her bag. I tried to help but didn't know how. Then a few days later, the richest kid in school stood up for her in front of everyone, and it changed everything between us. Now I'm wondering how to keep helping her heal, because I know the scars go way deeper. Advice? My sister was bullied badly for being poor at a rich school. The richest kid defended her in public, and it stopped, but I'm worried about the long-term emotional damage. How do I support her better? Alana, they stuffed a penny in my bag, Jenna said quietly as she pulled off her backpack, avoiding my eyes. What? I asked, trying not to sound like I was already angry. They left fake money in my locker too. With a note, she added, so softly it was almost a whisper. She didn't wait for a response. She walked right past me into the house, leaving me standing there, heartbreaking, not knowing what to do next. Jenna wasn't the kind of person people usually noticed at Westbrook Academy. She wasn't loud. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't wearing the right brands or driving the right car. Westbrook was the kind of private school that bragged about its Ivy League acceptance rates right on the homepage. You could smell the money in the hallways, kids dragging Louis Vuitton backpacks behind them like trash bags, complaining about spring break in Monaco like it was a punishment. We didn't belong there. After Mom and Dad's divorce, things weren't exactly comfortable. Dad moved into a downtown condo and started dating a Pilates instructor half his age. Mom picked up a second job and insisted on keeping Jenna at Westbrook because it's her best shot. The scholarships helped, but they didn't cover the difference that everyone could feel. Jenna wore Target sneakers that she'd Sharpadoodled flowers on. Her jeans were always a little too faded, her binders patched together with duct tape. I was too busy trying to hold my own life together to notice at first. Working morning shifts at a bakery, splitting my time between our house and my boyfriend's tiny apartment across town, pretending I had it all figured out when really, I was scared shitless most days. The fake money was the beginning of the end. It was an ordinary Wednesday when Jenna came home different. I knew something had shifted immediately. Usually, she burst in the door, complaining about a test or asking what we were ordering for dinner. That day, she didn't say anything. She just stood in the doorway, the sunlight turning her hair into a halo, her face carefully blank. I thought about texting Mom, but what would I even say? Hey, your daughter's getting emotionally shredded by spoiled brats while you're pulling a double shift at St. Luke's Hospital? No. This was my job. I decided I'd take care of it myself. I stayed up late that night scrolling through the Westbrook Academy Facebook groups. I didn't find anything that night, but over the next few days, things started popping up. A fake GoFundMe page. A meme with Jenna's face photoshopped onto a Salvation Army Santa, ringing a bell for donations. Comments like, "Someone start a charity for Jenna's busted-ass shoes." It felt like my stomach was trying to claw its way out of my body. I called the school the next day. Mrs. Pennington, the school secretary, answered on the second ring. "We take BLLYing very seriously," she said after I ranted at her for 10 minutes. I knew the script. I knew it wasn't going anywhere. At dinner that night, I tried to bring it up gently. "Maybe you could transfer? There are other good schools." Jenna just shook her head without looking up from her plate. "They'll win if I leave," she said simply. There wasn't much I could say to that. The days blurred into each other after that. Some mornings Jenna would come downstairs already looking defeated, other mornings she pretended everything was fine. I noticed the little things, the way her sketchbook stayed zipped up tight, how she stopped wearing the colorful bracelets she used to love. How her laugh disappeared entirely. Sometimes, late at night when I was still awake in bed, I could hear her crying through the wall. I hated those kids. I hated them more than I thought it was possible to hate anyone. But I didn't know how to fix it. I wasn't her mother. I wasn't her therapist. I was barely holding my own SHT together. Then, one day, everything changed. It was a Thursday. I had just gotten off my shift at the bakery early because the ovens broke down, and I was about to waste the afternoon watching terrible TV when my phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. Something's happening. No context. No follow-up. Just that. I grabbed my keys and bolted out the door. I didn't even stop to grab a jacket. When I pulled into the Westbrook parking lot, I half expected to get tackled by security. But I slipped in through the side gym doors without anyone noticing. The hallway smelled like cafeteria pizza and too much cologne. I followed the noise, or lack of it, toward the cafeteria. It was dead silent. You don't realize how weird silence is until you hear it somewhere that's never supposed to be quiet. I peered around the corner. And there he was. Caleb Whitmore. Standing on one of the cafeteria tables, looking every bit the golden boy he was. Caleb was Westbrook's golden ticket. His father basically owned half of Columbus, including the tech company that sponsored half the school's fancy innovation labs and global citizenship programs. Caleb could have KLL'd a man and the school would have covered it up with a $10 million donation and a new library wing. But there he was, standing on a lunch table, holding up one of the fake bills. My family's logo was on this, Caleb said, voice steady. You used my family's name to humiliate someone. You could have heard a pin drop. Savannah Blythe's face went white. Milo Reeves sank lower in his seat. Peyton Cross stared down at his tray like it might save him. Caleb turned slightly and pointed at Jenna. This girl right here is Jenna Carter. She's better than any of you. She's got more talent in her little finger than you'll ever have in your entire body. And the next person who tries to mess with her better hope I don't hear about it. Someone near the back of the room started clapping. A few others followed. Then it snowballed. I stood there frozen, watching Jenna just standing in the middle of it all, looking like she wanted to disappear. The applause was loud now. Too loud. It felt wrong, like a band-aid slapped on a gaping wound. She dropped her tray and ran. I ran after her. I found her sitting behind the gym, arms wrapped around her knees, head down. She didn't say anything when I sat down next to her. Eventually, she whispered, I didn't want him to do that. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just sat there with her, hoping it was enough. After a while, Jenna spoke again, so quietly I almost missed it. Now everyone's looking at me like I'm some kind of charity case. I didn't know if she wanted comfort or honesty. I settled for the truth. They were already looking at you like that, I said. At least now they know they can't get away with it. She pulled out a loose thread on her jeans, wrapping it around her finger until the tip turned purple. I don't want to be a project, she said. I knew what she meant. Nobody wants to be pitted. Especially not by the people who treated you like garbage in the first place. We sat there for a long time. I could hear the buzz of the school's old AC unit kicking on, the distant thud of a basketball in the gym. Finally, she stood up, brushed off her jeans, and said, I have art club. I'm late. And just like that, she walked back inside. I watched her go, feeling both proud and gut-punched at the same time. The next few days were strange. At school, Jenna told me people mostly kept their distance. No more pennies in her bag. No more fake money in her locker. Savannah, Milo, and Peyton were suspended for 2 weeks. I heard through the grapevine that Savannah's mom tried to threaten the school board with lawyers, but it didn't work. Apparently, Caleb's family had too much influence for that. Funny how the world works. Real justice never feels clean. It feels complicated and uneven and leaves a sour taste in your mouth. Jenna didn't seem happy about what happened. If anything, she seemed embarrassed. The art teacher, Ms. Harrow, pulled her aside after class one day and told her she was submitting Jenna's portfolio for a scholarship program. Jenna shrugged it off when she told me, like it wasn't a big deal. But I knew it was. At home, things stayed mostly the same. Mom was barely around between shifts at the hospital. When she was, she didn't ask a lot of questions. Maybe she didn't want to know the answers. Dad texted once, after I told him about what happened. Dad, glad someone stood up for her. Tell her to keep her chin up. That was it. No offer to come visit. No proud of you. Just a thumbs up in text form. Jenna didn't mention Dad once. Sometimes I wondered if she even thought about him anymore. Maybe she just folded that part of her heart up like an old map and shoved it in a drawer somewhere. I didn't blame her. We learned early that love isn't always something you can count on. One Saturday, a few weeks after the cafeteria incident, Jenna asked if I wanted to drive her downtown. She didn't say why, just mumbled something about needing inspiration. I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my keys. We ended up at the old warehouse district, where the city had converted a bunch of abandoned buildings into art spaces and farmers markets. The walls were covered in murals, huge, vibrant splashes of color. Some of them were signed by artists I recognized from local papers. Others were anonymous, names hidden under layers of spray paint. Jenna stood in front of one massive mural for a long time. It was a swirl of blue and gold, with a quote painted across the top, "You are worth more than they'll ever understand." I saw her eyes go glassy. She didn't say anything. Just stared at it like it was speaking directly to her. And maybe it was. Life didn't magically get easier after that. The kids at school didn't suddenly turn into saints. Some of them still whispered behind their hands when Jenna walked by. Others treated her like some fragile piece of glass they didn't want to touch. But the cruelty, the outright attacks, that stopped. The silence was different now. Heavy, but not dangerous. Jenna started drawing again. Sketchbooks piled up on the floor of her room. Half-finished paintings leaned against the walls. She stopped trying to shrink herself down to nothing every time she walked into a room. I tried to be better too. I picked her up from school more often, even when I had to rearrange my shifts. I made sure there was always frozen pizza in the freezer, even when I could barely afford my half of rent. I sat with her in silence when she didn't feel like talking, and cheered too loudly at her art shows when she did. I didn't always get it right. Sometimes I pushed too hard, tried too hard to fix her when what she needed was just someone to sit beside her and let her be broken for a while. But I was learning. We both were. One afternoon, a few months after everything blew up, Jenna dropped a thick envelope onto the kitchen counter. She didn't say anything. Just tossed it there while she rummaged through the fridge like it didn't matter. I knew better. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked it up. Columbus College of Art and Design. My heart jumped. I turned to look at her, but she was busy pretending to inspect the expiration date on a half-eaten tub of hummus. "Did you open it?" I asked. She shrugged. Didn't feel like it. I could see right through her. She was scared. Scared that after everything, after all the crap she'd survived, someone was still going to tell her she wasn't good enough. I slid the envelope back across the counter. "You should," I said. She stood there for a second, chewing on her lip, then finally grabbed it. She tore the seal with shaking hands, pulled out the papers, and read silently. Then she smiled. It was small, hesitant, like she didn't quite believe it yet. But it was real. "I got in," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "With a scholarship." I couldn't help it. I hooped so loud I scared the dog. Jenna laughed, really laughed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the sound wasn't brittle or forced. It was light. It was free. We went out for ice cream that night to celebrate, even though it was freezing cold and none of us really had the money for it. Mom joined us after her shift, still in her scrubs, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She cried when Jenna handed her the acceptance letter. Hugged her so tight Jenna actually squeaked. It wasn't perfect. Mom kept checking her work phone during the whole thing. She left early because of some emergency at the hospital. But she showed up. That meant something. Dad didn't come. He texted Jenna a "proud of you kiddo" and a bunch of random emojis that didn't make any sense. A balloon. A thumbs up. A slice of pizza. I wanted to throw my phone across the parking lot. Jenna just shrugged and stuffed it in her pocket. She didn't need him to be proud. She had herself. The last few months of senior year crawled by. Jenna kept her head down, focused on her art. Savannah, Milo, and Peyton kept their distance. Caleb Whitmore was still Caleb, popular, untouchable, but he and Jenna never really talked again after that day in the cafeteria. And that was fine. Jenna didn't need saving anymore. One night, I found her sitting on the roof outside her bedroom window, sketchbook balanced on her knees. The stars were out, bright against the black velvet sky. I climbed out beside her, the shingles rough under my palms. "What are you drawing?" I asked. She tilted the sketchbook so I could see. It was a picture of two girls sitting on a roof, legs dangling over the edge, stars exploding above them. Us. I felt my throat get tight. "You're gonna do amazing things, you know that?" I said. She just smiled that small, secret smile of hers and went back to sketching. Graduation day came fast after that. Westbrook Academy put on a huge ceremony, complete with rented white tents, a catered brunch, and a professional photographer. Everyone's parents showed up in designer clothes, snapping pictures on the newest iPhones, laughing too loud. We showed up in a borrowed car with a cracked windshield and a Costco bouquet wilting in the heat. Didn't matter. When Jenna walked across that stage, cap and gown swishing around her ankles, head held high, she looked like she belonged there more than anyone. I screamed her name so loud a couple people turned to stare. She laughed when she heard me, really laughed, bright and loud, and in that moment, I didn't care about the whispers or the stares or the rich parents looking down their noses at us. She had made it. Against every odd, against every cruel word and fake dollar bill, she had made it. The summer after graduation was a strange, in-between time. Jenna was technically done with high school, but college was still a few months away. She floated through those weeks like someone half-dreaming. Some days were good. She'd spend hours painting in the backyard, barefoot in the grass, headphones in, the smell of acrylics thick in the air. Other days weren't. She'd disappear into her room for hours. No music. No sketching. Just silence. I tried not to push her. Healing isn't a straight line. It's not neat or pretty. Sometimes it feels like you're making progress, and then one tiny thing, a comment, a memory, a bad dream, knocks you right back down. One Saturday morning, I found her sitting at the kitchen table with a half-eaten bowl of cereal and that old, distant look on her face. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. For a while, we just sat there, the clock ticking loud in the silence. Finally, she said, "Do you ever think about how much easier it would have been if we'd just gone somewhere else? A normal school?" I nodded slowly. Yeah. All the time. She stirred her soggy cereal aimlessly. Maybe it would have been better if I hadn't stayed. I set my cup down a little too hard, coffee sloshing over the rim. "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to think like that." She blinked, startled. "You didn't deserve what they did to you." Staying wasn't weak. It wasn't stupid. It was brave. She didn't say anything. Just stared at the table. "I'm proud of you," I added, softer this time. "You hear me? You're not what they said you were." She gave a little nod, almost imperceptible. But it was something. We spent a lot of that summer getting ready for her move to college. Buying cheap pots and pans from Goodwill. Arguing over twin XL sheets at Target. Watching YouTube videos about how to decorate a dorm room on a budget. She picked a roommate through the school's online portal, a girl named Mia who was into photography and punk rock and seemed nice enough through a few awkward video calls. I could tell Jenna was nervous, though she tried to hide it. The night before move-in day, I found her sitting on her bed, surrounded by half-packed boxes, her sketchbook open on her lap. She was drawing a tiny figure standing on the edge of a giant blank canvas. "What if I mess it up?" she asked, not looking at me. "You won't," I said immediately. "But what if I do?" I sat down beside her, the bed creaking under our weight. "Then you figure it out," I said. "You've already survived worse." She leaned her head against my shoulder for a moment, just like she used to when we were little and the world felt too big. Move-in day was chaos. Families everywhere, hauling mini fridges and laundry baskets up narrow staircases. Overheated dads swearing under their breath. Moms crying into Starbucks cups. Jenna handled it the way she handled most big things, quietly, methodically, like she was building a fortress around herself piece by piece. We set up her side of the room in a few hours. Strung up some fairy lights, laid out her sketchbooks in neat piles, pinned a few old Polaroids to the corkboard above her desk. When it was finally done, we stood there for a minute, both of us pretending it wasn't happening. Mia hadn't arrived yet, so it was just us. I shoved my hands into the pockets of my jeans, suddenly not knowing what to do. "Well," I said awkwardly. "Looks good." Jenna laughed a little, twisting a strand of hair around her finger. "You'll come visit, right?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "You'll be sick of me." She smiled, small and real. Then, without warning, she threw her arms around me and squeezed so hard I almost lost my balance. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" I said, voice thick. "For not letting me disappear." I hugged her back fiercely. "You never could have disappeared, Jen," I said into her hair. "You're too bright." The drive home was the worst part. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her running after me, waving me back. But she didn't. She stayed. She was ready. Or at least, as ready as any of us ever are. The first few months of college were hard on Jenna, even if she tried to hide it. Mia turned out to be even nicer in person, but starting over wasn't easy. She called me some nights sounding exhausted and defeated, worn out from trying to fit into a place that, while better than Westbrook, still sometimes made her feel small. I kept telling her the same thing, "Just be you, Jen. You're enough." Slowly, she found her people. The art program at CCAD was full of kids like her, brilliant, weird, messy, beautiful souls who didn't give a damn about how much money you had or what car you drove. Jenna started working on a huge piece for her final semester showcase. She wouldn't tell me much about it, just that it was personal. I figured it had something to do with the hill she went through at Westbrook. I didn't push. I trusted her to tell her story the way she needed to. Meanwhile, back in our hometown, Westbrook Academy was having its 50th anniversary celebration. Huge event. Black tie. Alumni flying in from all over the country. Big donors. Press coverage. And guess who was on the planning committee? Savannah Blythe. Yeah. That's Savannah. Somehow, after all the garbage she pulled in high school, Savannah had managed to fail upward. She was running some boutique PR agency downtown, posting endless photos of herself on Instagram, bragging about girl boss life. Milo Reeves had gotten a job through family connections and Peyton Cross was apparently still floating around community college, half-heartedly studying business. It didn't matter. They were still those people, still dripping in fake smiles and empty charm, pretending the past didn't exist. Until Jenna decided to remind them. The final semester showcase at CCAD was scheduled for the same weekend as Westbrook's anniversary gala. Jenna's piece got the center display spot. When I walked into the exhibit, my breath caught. She had created an enormous, mixed-media installation, a towering wall layered with fake dollar bills, pennies glued into chaotic patterns, and massive blown-up versions of the humiliating notes they'd left in her locker. In the middle of the chaos stood a single mirror. At eye level, written in neat, careful script, were the words, "What you see says more about you than it ever did about me." It was BRTAL in its honesty. Beautiful in its defiance. People loved it. Within hours, photos of Jenna's piece were blowing up on social media. Local art blogs were raving about her. Someone from the Columbus Dispatch asked to interview her. But the best part? Westbrook Academy had sponsored the art showcase that year. Their name was right there on the promotional banners, printed big and bold next to Jenna's exhibit. By the time Savannah and the rest of the old crowd realized what had happened, it was too late. Savannah's face when she walked into the gallery and saw it? Worth every second of pain they ever caused. She froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, turning redder by the second. Milo tried to laugh it off, but even he looked rattled. Peyton barely made eye contact with anyone. The whispers started immediately. People recognized the fake notes, the monopoly money, the pennies. The story Jenna had buried for so long was suddenly out there in the open, and Savannah couldn't spin it away, couldn't delete it, couldn't fake smile her way out of it. Jenna didn't have to say a word. She just stood by her installation, calm and steady, while the people who hurt her were finally forced to see themselves for who they really were. After the showcase, Jenna and I sat on the curb outside the gallery, sharing a bag of greasy fries from a street vendor. She swung her legs back and forth like she used to when she was little. "Think they got the message?" I asked, nudging her shoulder. She smirked, dipping a fry in ketchup. "They can pretend they don't care," she said. "But they'll remember it." I leaned back, looking up at the stars. "They should. You're unforgettable." She laughed, a real, loud, no holding back laugh, and tossed a fry at me. It bounced off my jacket and landed on the sidewalk, but I didn't care. I'd never seen her shine so brightly. We didn't need revenge to be cruel. We didn't need it to destroy anyone. We just needed it to be true. And it was. She had taken every ugly, petty thing they'd thrown at her and turned it into something bigger, something stronger. She hadn't just survived. She'd built something beautiful out of it. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all.